This girl's exclusive skill definitely caused some drama, but more importantly, does she replace any of the top Navy heroes? But before we get to that, someone's gonna have to explain all the holes in her wetsuit to me, because I thought the point of a wetsuit was to keep you warm, and you think being the captain of an elite special forces frogmen unit, she would have the appropriate gear. But poor fashion choices aside, she is an inspiring and mighty captain to her team. However, her team knows to keep their distance because she is very dangerous to be around with a win or die attitude. You know she's going to complete her mission, you just don't know if you're going to be alive by the end of it. Now let's move on to Nereid's exclusive ability, Infiltration, which has been all sorts of problems within the community, and it appears that most of these problems are due to poor translation, so let's see if we can sort out some of the confusion. The first part of her ability is at the beginning of the battle, you'll increase the HP of all your naval units by 30% at max stats. The next part is whenever units from the back 2 rows, so slots 4 through 9, attack, there's a chance they'll proc her ability and launch 2 to 4 missiles at a random enemy target, dealing 100% damage each. However, if the enemy target has their attack debuffed, she deals additional damage. Now this is the part that appears to have a bad translation issue. This says damage dealt increase by 150%. Based on my server's testing, we believe this is a poor translation. It is not increased by 150%, it is increased to 150%. In other words, instead of the total damage being 250, it's actually 150. Nereid's equipable exclusive skill also has plenty of issues within it. You'll notice in the description of the skill, it actually has the wrong hero's name in it. However, this appears to be purely cosmetic and have no effect on the skill. However, the extra attributes gained at exclusive level 3, 5, and 7, there are some mix-ups here. At level 3, there's no problems here. The attack of all naval units is increased by 30%. Level 5 is the one that has a lot of people upset. The way this is worded, you get a 15% damage decrease, and she's not required to be in the battle for this. Unfortunately, at the time of this filming, this is inaccurate and not correct. To get that damage decrease, she does have to be in the battle. We don't know what Top War is going to do to fix this, whether they're going to change the ability or change the wording, so definitely keep an eye out for a change on that. Maybe I'll post something on my Twitter, which you can find in the description below, if or when they resolve this issue. But also at level 5, she's able to increase the amount of missiles she shoots from 2 to 4, and instead shoots 3 to 4, so you're guaranteed a higher minimum amount of missiles fired. Moving on to level 7, this is interesting. Usually level 5 is where you get the passive bonus, but level 7 gives an all unit damage decrease of 3%, not required to be in the battle. I kind of like this change because that means the whales don't get a huge boost at level 7, instead the huge boost is at level 5, and is accessible to more players. Do you guys think this is a good thing, or would you rather the passive one be at level 5? Short term, this might be better for most players, but long term, the whales are going to stack up those damage increases and decreases. Nereid is definitely a very interesting hero they've released for the Navy. She obviously works very well with the fortified formation. She already gives an HP boost. The front row does no damage, so with the fortified formation giving HP in the front and damage in the back, this would work very well with her ability. However, since there's no other heroes that really work with the fortified formation like the Air Force heroes do, it's still, at the moment, advisable to run Assault with your Navy. However, seeing a hero released like this makes me very excited because it makes me think that we might be getting new heroes in the future that work with the fortified formation, similar to Air Force's Aya and Selena. So I'm looking forward to the next Navy hero release to see if that's the case. Now to the big question that everybody has. Does she replace one of the top 3 Navy heroes? Before Nereid was released, the top 3 Navy heroes are Akatora, Belos, and Yu. So I want to compare her to each one of those heroes and see if she replaces any of them. Starting off with Akatora, Nereid has a higher damage potential than Akatora. The reason for this is if you add their missiles all together, Nereid has a total damage potential of 200 to 400%, where Akatora is 160% to 400%. So Akatora has a lower minimum, which means the average damage that Nereid deals per proc is greater than Akatora's. Also, based on my testing against the sand table, she procs approximately 2 times per 9 attacks, and of course she can only proc on those back 6 units. Sometimes she procced more, sometimes she procced less. In my experience, her proc chance seems to be somewhere between 30 and 40%. Which means after a battle has stretched out, she procs more often than Akatora. So not only does she attack more often, she also has a higher average damage than Akatora. She also has a higher war stat than Akatora, which means even greater damage. However, the biggest benefit of Akatora is once you get him to 5 stars, he actually procs on the very first stack. So while he has a lower damage potential, he is attacking right off the bat, where Nereid is going to have to wait for that 4th unit. And sometimes that faster attack is going to outweigh any damage increase that a hero has. Now to compare her with Yu. If you're in a PvE situation where you're attacking the sand table or the world boss, Nereid is clearly better than you because you don't need quite as much survivability and you're going to get a significantly greater damage potential by replacing her. However, in most PvP situations, it's going to be very questionable because you need the survivability that Yu gives to your navy with the damage decrease she offers to naval units. Also, Yu is going to be the main source of debuffing your enemy with an attack decrease, which is what Nereid takes advantage of to deal extra damage. So if you get rid of Yu and have to rely on Akatora for your damage decrease, that means Nereid has a significantly lower chance of hitting a target that has an attack decrease, lowering her damage potential. So I could see Yu easily being replaced against the sand table or world boss with Nereid, but in a PvP situation, I just don't see the benefit of it because you really need that survivability to balance out your team. Finally, we compare Nereid to Belos, and this one was a really tough one to compare. Now, if you replace Belos with Nereid, you have a significant drop in attack because Nereid has a lower war than Belos, as well as you lose out on Belos' exclusive ability to increase the attack of all naval units by 76%. However, what you lose in attack, you do gain in part in defense because Nereid has a higher defense, as well as offering a 20% HP bonus to all naval units. However, the attack decrease you lose from replacing Belos seems to be greater than the HP and survivability that you're gaining from using Nereid. So it's not something that I would necessarily advise, but it's definitely something that you could test and play with, whether or not you want your March to focus on attack or defense. So to answer the question, does she replace one of the top 3 Navy heroes? I don't think she does. However, I think she's a very solid 4th place Navy hero. And if you don't have one of those top 3 Navy heroes, she is definitely a good pick to replace any other Navy hero that you do have. And I am happy to see a hero like this because it does make me think that Top War is making some effort to balance the heroes, and I think we should all be happy about that. So thank you guys for watching. I'm out.